if they keep giving her things, the more they give, the more Trump loses. So I don't know what the next step is. I don't know if she's going to stay put or if that's going to come up again.
Hey, let's just stick with Ghislaine Maxwell. Talk about Leslie Wexner. Then let's talk about the Ghislaine Maxwell of it all. And then let's talk about the Epstein estate. And then if I'm missing anything, you jump in.
Okay. Yeah, there's just I've talked a little bit about like Ghislaine Maxwell's husband. That was kind of an interesting update to the events that we didn't all know about. So that's been a little bit of a deep dive that I've been doing that I am certainly not done with. I think it's going to be much longer, but yeah, stuff going on.
And the Melania documentary released by Amazon, which Jeff Bezos paid, $40 million for, directed by Brett Ratner, another man just engulfed in the Me Too scandal. And I wonder, I haven't seen the documentary. I'm not going to see the documentary. I think it's forthcoming. I wonder whether or not that documentary, I don't know, has a segment or a chapter on her friendship with Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. Folks, you've joined me in mid-conversation with the Panic writer, Ellie Leonard. Go subscribe. She's doing fantastic work. A rising superstar on the Substacks because she, despite being a mama bear and with a busy life, she has dutifully gone through every single published Epstein email. And on her fantastic Substack, she has categorized it and analyzed it. And, you know, folks, you can walk and chew gum at the same time, as they say in DC. And for the rest of us, especially for us DEI hires, the POC and women, we have to walk, chew gum, and juggle and keep all our eyes on the balls. So yes, we know what's happening in Iran and Venezuela, the attack on Jerome Powell, the fascist regime, the murder of Renee Good, the attack on our healthcare system. But what we've said on the left hook is Trump's greatest Achilles heel is the Epstein scandal. And Ellie, before I give it to you, I do want to say this. You know, I've said this before on the left hook. I'm not into conspiracy theories. I like to see facts, and then I jump in. But I've said, and I think it's clear now, that we're witnessing the biggest political cover-up in modern history when it comes to the Trump-Epstein scandal. And for those who think, Waj, that's hyperbole, allow me just to say the following, then I'm going to give it to you. The Justice Department, as of January 12th, 2:13 p.m., can release the Epstein Files. They haven't. The Justice Department was supposed to explain the redaction. Instead, Donald Trump that day announced he's illegally invading Venezuela. The Justice Department, according to the Wall Street Journal reporting, told Donald Trump that he's in the Epstein Files. Donald Trump has lied about that. Furthermore, what we found out is Donald Trump lied about him writing that lewd note with that lewd drawing to Jeffrey Epstein for his 50th birthday book that was compiled by Ghislaine Maxwell. We know that the Justice Department has given overtime pay to thousands of FBI agents to find Donald Trump's name and redact it, and they still failed because his name still came out. And we know that Donald Trump partied with Jeffrey Epstein for nearly a decade when he was not a young playboy, according to Susan Wild, his chief of staff, when he was 50 years old. And let's start with the biggest piece, the biggest smoking gun. Suppose you don't believe anything I just said, Ellie. Explain to me the Ghislaine Maxwell of it all, because I believe the Ghislaine Maxwell of it all proves that this is the biggest cover-up we're seeing. Because, Ellie, why is Ghislaine Maxwell in a minimum security prison getting pampered in Texas?
Because she had a proffer, and in order to have a proffer, it means I'm going to give you something, so I get a little something in return. So she sat down with Todd Blanche for 2 days and lied her ass off, which we now know because we have all the receipts. And she got upgraded from a low security prison to a minimum security prison camp, which means that she is now in more like there's no cells, there's no walls. It's more like a camp setting. They're all together. It's like a hotel. She's got yoga classes. She's got, pets on the side. Like it's definitely a step up from what she was doing, but she didn't, Todd Blanche said in those interviews, you have immunity from some things, but you don't have immunity from perjuring yourself in these interviews. And she perjured herself through the whole thing, but they are never going to go back and investigate that. They know it. I mean, a lot of it they knew while she was saying it. If I know it while she's saying it and I have the receipts while she's saying it, then they certainly do. So she got through, she got what she wanted. I don't know now what the next step is for her, because I kind of feel like if they keep giving her things, the more they give, the more Trump loses. So I don't know what the next step is. I don't know if she's going to stay put or if that's going to come up again.
Hey, let's just stick with Ghislaine Maxwell. And again, folks, for those who don't know, right? So that we do a little bit of recaps and then we'll add new stuff just so everyone's on the same page. We want to make sure everyone's informed. Explain to people the relationship between Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and why she's not just a side player here.
Yeah, so she is kind of a categorical person. He had a best friend guy and he had a girlfriend / assistant female at all times, and they kind of shifted over time, but she was like the matriarch. So she came in, her father's Robert Maxwell. He was the owner of, the Daily Mirror and multiple publishing agents and tabloids in England, and he was also connected to British intelligence. He was connected to Israeli intelligence. Tons of money. Turns up dead, floating in the Atlantic naked off the end of his yacht. She shows up in New York City.
Despite being an expert swimmer?
Despite being an expert. He was just peeing in the middle of the night. Don't worry about it. She shows up in New York. She starts dating Jeffrey Epstein. They claim that that's the first time they've met, but now in the birthday book, it shows that they very possibly were hanging out when she was a teenager. She, I believe, is the first kind of step in the grooming process by her father, which then launched into the Jeffrey Epstein relationship. She was his girlfriend for a vague amount of time. Then she became like a friend with benefits. She was always a co-conspirator, always very jealous of his relationships. He had a 10-year relationship with Eva Anderson Dubin, Glenn Dubin's wife, prior to dating Ghislaine Maxwell. Very jealous of her, very jealous of Virginia Giuffre, who he assaulted for several years as a child. Always was very obsessively in love with Jeffrey Epstein. And so she did his bidding for many, many years. And she swears up and down that there are points in time when she stopped talking to him. But then again, we'll have more emails from her that are years later. And so she on record made millions of dollars from him. His money was passed along to the estate. He dies. Money is in her hands. She gets married apparently in 2016, which was a surprise to everyone. And now money has been passed along to her husband, Scott Borkerson, while she is in prison. We don't know what that means. We don't know if it's still like a systematic thing, kind of like these insider trading and racketeering and intelligence issues, or if she's just if she's paying her way through prison, basically.
And who's Scott, her husband?
So Scott is her husband. He owned a company called Cargometrics, which was a data and shipping company. He went to college for like international law and languages and all these things that sort of hint at like some of the stuff that Epstein may have been into, some of the stuff that Robert Maxwell may have been into. They met each other at a conference in, I think, Reykjavik. Am I pronouncing that right? And
I think.
Iceland. Thank you. I almost said Finland. He was giving a speech. She was there from Terramar, which was her, ocean conservation company that had no offices, did no work, and donated no money, conserved nothing. And she was just swept off her feet. He was married with a couple of kids. A year later, his wife filed for divorce, and they moved into this big house in Manchester by the Sea in Massachusetts, lived there for a while. And then as soon as Epstein was arrested, they purchased a property. They would purchase it under an LLC. They, of course, wouldn't use their own names. They used, pseudonyms. She was Jane Marshall. She was a journalist. Supposedly, she brought someone along as her husband that was probably a security guard, said that they were from the British military. And they purchased his house in New Hampshire and hid out for a year until the FBI found him.
And where is he right now?
Nobody knows. That's a great question. He is just floating along. He started a tiny green energy company that supposedly has like 5 people that work for it. But he has just kind of stepped away. There was a settlement after she went to prison, and he basically paid his way out of the settlement and just took off. And so he has been linked with new relationships, which makes me, which makes people think that they were divorced. I don't know that they were ever married in the first place. It could have been just like a common law marriage where they combine their assets. But he has moved on and sort of disappeared back into the ether.
Yes, that was going to be my follow-up question. Are they even still married? We don't know. Huh,
Don't know.
interesting. I do want to go back to the Ghislaine Maxwell involved because I just feel like it's a big whopper literally in front of our face and we just kind of just casually ignore it. Going back to something you said that Todd Blanche went and talked to her. I just want to remind people that Todd Blanche was Donald Trump's personal attorney. Todd Blanche is an assistant attorney general. The attorney general rarely leaves Washington, D.C. He was the one who then goes and spends 2 days with Ghislaine Maxwell. It should have been, if anyone spending time with her for a deal, the special prosecutor. The special prosecutor was Maureen Comey, who was, wait for it, the week
Mhm.
before, fired. So
Yep.
Todd Blanche spends 2 days with her, and less than a week later, she is then moved to a minimum security prison, which she should not have been allowed to move to based on her status as a predator. So just like her boyfriend slash employer slash accomplice Epstein, she gets special treatment not given
Yeah.
to anybody else in the history of Earth. But they released a transcript of that conversation between Ghislaine Maxwell and Todd Blanche and said, see, we're being transparent. And
Hmm.
you have now read everything and done a compare
Yeah.
and contrast. How was she lying? Where was she lying?
Well, first off, I went through and I retranscribed the whole thing because they're transcribers. Like this is my job that I've done for 10 years. I've had a transcription business. So I know that people make a lot of mistakes when they're transcribing. And they did. They did make a lot of mistakes. I looked at their transcript, I wrote up my own transcript, and a lot of it was very different. Um, Big things that the DOJ that I don't think were mistakes is they didn't redact victims' names. Like she would say the name of a Jane Doe out loud, and they didn't redact it in the transcript. They didn't redact it in the audio.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, they're redacting ridiculous. They were redacting Virginia Giuffre's name left and right, but then giving clues all around it of who they were talking to. What is her boyfriend's name? Where did she live? What was her, so we know exactly who they're talking about, but they're doing their due diligence and redacting her name. So there was a lot of issues with that. There's a lot of issues about timeline. She swears. First, she says that, I wasn't hanging around after 2006 when he got arrested. And then she says 2010. And now we have emails that go as far as 2015. She lies about like the money that she had. She said that she was just this, poor little jaybird living in New York, and she found Jeffrey Epstein, and she lived in a 10 by 10 apartment, and he barely let her in his house. And there's just all this stuff where she's just incredibly poor. Me, and the acting is pretty rough. I'm gonna say her acting is not. It's subpar. She's very Mary Poppins. She tries to say, every once in a while she'll say things like, when he starts to ask her questions, she'll bring up sort of a sob story like 9/11, like what were they doing during 9/11 and how hard was it for them? Or she talked about how both she and Jeffrey Epstein had health problems that precluded them from having sexual activity. So none of this could have happened because neither of them were healthy enough for sex. And just a bunch of just very, very ridiculous little anecdotes. And then she would come to times when she would start to say something which could have been, we could have followed up on it, could have been interesting. Like she thought that she was saying something that mattered, and Todd Blanche would cut her off and go in a different direction. So you never really got to hear what she was saying. So it was a game of cat and mouse. I don't think either of them got what they wanted out of the interview. I think she thought she was going to go in there. She was going to say all these things. She was going to get a pardon right away. I think that he went in there thinking she was going to give this healing, glowing recommendation of Donald Trump, and Donald Trump was going to be free for the rest of his life. And I don't think either of them got what they wanted.
And I will say this, the birthday book filled with vile photos. If you haven't seen it, folks, it's the 50th birthday book that Ghislaine Maxwell compiled for Jeffrey Epstein, which includes, wait for it, word for word, exactly what the Wall Street Journal published, alleging what Donald Trump wrote with the lewd drawing. It's right there, along with a lot of other lewd drawings.
Right.
That could have only. I'm sitting there thinking, isn't it fascinating, Ellie, that this just drops while Ghislaine Maxwell is in a minimum security camp openly, essentially every month, asking for commutation.
Right.
Where could this book have come from, Ellie?
That is a great question. There's a lot of stuff that dropped when she came out, and that comes from the estate. And I firmly believe that she is still in control of the Epstein estate, which is supposedly run by Darren and Dyke and Richard Kahn, which are his accountant and his lawyer. This is like the yin to the yang of the DOJ Epstein files. We're all waiting for the DOJ stuff to drop. But we have this treasure trove of information that is inside the private estate of Jeffrey Epstein that is now under the thumb of these two men, most likely Ghislaine Maxwell, potentially her newer husband. Like anybody who has been connected to that money, there is likely offshore money that we don't know about. Because that's why they didn't want to give him bail, as they were really afraid he was going to run and push his money offshore. I'm sure he did that long before they got to that point because he knew he was under surveillance. Like there's a ton of stuff in there. I have it on good record that they had birthday books every year. It wasn't just 2003 that there was a birthday book. And so there should be much, much, much more information that we don't have that's much more like visual and tangible, that's less documents. And that will come out of the estate. And I firmly believe that Ghislaine Maxwell is in charge of that.
And I said this with Allison several months ago. I said I would not be surprised if Ghislaine has like a dead woman switch that gets activated, right? Like if something were to happen to her, all of a sudden information would be released.
Yep. I believe
which
so.
is why she's still alive, and why she's in a minimum security camp, and no one has explained to the administration how she got this transfer, who authorized the transfer, why she's getting a special treatment, yoga lessons, a dog, why the leaks have happened that the inmates hate her because her special treatments can interfere with their daily life. The security guards hate it. Ellie, if I'm her and I see George Santos being pardoned, I see the ex-president of Honduras being pardoned. Why would I ever spend 20 years in prison when I'm sitting on the Epstein estate, which has damning incriminating evidence against Donald Trump?
Well, she saw her boyfriend basically get pardoned. I mean, when Jeffrey Epstein went to prison the first time around, he was outside the prison walls for 12 hours a day. So, like, I'm sure she's pissed that she's even in a minimum security prison. She probably thinks that she's above it. She doesn't deserve it. You hear a lot of complaints in the files about how it's too cold and uncomfortable. And she says all through her proffer that she can't remember anything because her memory has been ruined by not sleeping enough and being woken up and being checked on all the time. And you have to think about, like, this is something that Lev Parnas told me, like, if you have someone who's a high profile inmate anywhere, they're not given extra privileges because not only do they not deserve it, but it's also unsafe for them to have those extra privileges. You don't take a person who's high profile for having done these major crimes that everybody knows about them and put them out in the population to just walk around with people. That's dangerous for them. So it is very strange that this is the situation that's going on. And having seen what we've seen so far with these files and how it's every time they drop, it really does not get any better for Donald Trump. I kind of wonder if he doesn't regret what he's done and let her out a little bit more. I kind of wonder if he wishes he could put her back, but I don't know.
And he has not said no to whenever he has been asked publicly about pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell. And I think whatever is in these files, this is a man without any shame, a man who brags about grabbing women by the pee, a man who mocks and ridicules everyone, a man who's a rapist held liable for raping E. Jean Carroll. But he's terrified of what's in the Epstein files. So it just goes to show you, like, what's in it that could even shame and terrify the most shameless man on earth. Ellie, what do you think's in it? Like, what do you think really scares him?
I think the thing that scares Donald Trump is popularity and money. I think those two things are his kryptonite. He needs money all the time. He doesn't want anybody to mess with his money, and he needs people to like him and to say he's great. I don't think he even worries about the sexual stuff because I don't think he thinks it's wrong. I don't think he thinks anything he did was wrong. But I know he worries about his financial connections, and those are huge, and those involve more people than the sexual stuff. Those involve anybody in industry, anybody above a certain pay grade. Like, that could take down a massive, massive, massive amount of people. And at this point, they're looking to him to protect them. And so he's thinking, oh, well, then I'm going to lose the popularity if I lose all the people as well. Like he's stuck between a rock and a hard place. And I just think he's terrified that it's going to come down on him what happens with these files if everybody goes down for them.
Yeah, and the sad part is, I think the raping of girls, he's like, Americans won't
Doesn't
care. My
care.
base won't care.
Yeah.
You know, and Michael Wolff, for all of his questionable antics, you know, when I've interviewed him twice, he has hundreds of hours of tapes with Jeffrey Epstein. He released that tape where Epstein said that he was Donald Trump's closest friend. When I asked him, you know, what they used to do together, he said they used to chase models. That was the currency of powerful men in the 90s. And he said to me twice, I asked him, what were the ages of these girls? He said 14 to 19.
Right.
So even if it comes out that he raped girls, I have faith in this sick country with the Megyn Kellys, who has a 14-year-old daughter, saying, barely legal. So in addition to the rape, I think there is that financial trail that connects JP Morgan, Bear Stearns, Deutsche Bank, other countries, that really probably terrifies him. Like, this Russia, Israel, potentially Ehud Barak, the prime minister.
Yeah, if he messes with other leaders, those are the people that he will be screwed by. Like, and I think with the sexual stuff, I really think that the part of the reason, and this came straight out of Ghislaine Maxwell's mouth, it came straight out of Jeffrey Epstein's mouth, they are so well traveled that they have been to every country in the world, and they consider the age of consent to be the lowest age of consent in the world. They think, America is prudish, that it's so high that they have to be a certain age. You know, we can go to Italy, or we can go to Russia, or we can go to all these other countries where it's so much lower. That is the age of consent. So that's what I consider to be consent. And Jeffrey Epstein considered teens and preteens not to be pedophilia. And you hear Ghislaine Maxwell say, well, you know, the age of consent is 16 in the UK. So that's what I consider to be the age of consent. So it's like they use that as an excuse, and that tells them that they think that nothing is wrong with anything they've done, because the modeling industry caters to younger women, and they say that 19 is too old. You hear that a lot. 19 is too old. I had to move on. So I just don't think they even consider that part. I think the money matters so much more to them. But what I was going to say is the thing they were banking on when they gave this to us, when they gave this to the American people, is they were banking on us being blind and stupid. And they didn't realize that when they gave us these files, they may have 1,000 people redacting on the inside, but they have millions of people with millions of singular, unique skills out here digging through these files and working together. And they will never have a department that big. And so we are finding things. We're finding ways to unredact files. We're finding clues. Like, I can look at a letter that is posted on Jeffrey Epstein's wall that is not signed by Jeffrey Epstein, but I have read enough emails from him that I know who's writing this letter. I know when somebody does a double comma out of nowhere for no reason, that's Jeffrey Epstein, because that's how he writes. Like, I can now figure out clues from having read so many documents from the same people over and over and over again, or their handwriting, or their style of speaking. Like, there are things that we start to pick up on that 1,000 FBI agents in a couple of months are not going to see, because they just don't have the time and money and effort to do that.
And also they're reckless and they're incompetent.
Yes,
and according to Allison, when Allison from Mueller, she wrote, puts on her tin hat, she's told us she thinks some of these FBI agents are deliberately being reckless and deliberately saying, oops, forgot that photo of Donald Trump. My bad.
Right. Because, I mean, if you have a room full of 1,000 people, how often are you going to find 1,000 people in agreement? Probably not very often. There's going to be a few people in there who are digging and doing the right thing. I hope, you know what I mean? I hope for leaks. I hope for the people to be looking through these things and say, whoops, didn't redact Trump that time. I hope that the person who let the picture through of Donald Trump in the drawer with all the women, I hope that was somebody on our side. I don't know.
And also that disgusting transcript about what Donald Trump, you know, the what he did to that girl, and also the fact that the girl told the limo driver that she was just assaulted by Donald Trump. All that was unredacted, folks. So, you know, there's several holes that he can't plug. He cannot plug the Epstein estate. We're talking about the estate now. For those who don't know, this is the estate, the files, the treasure trove of documents that exist within the Epstein estate. Some of them have been given to Democrats. I believe Democrats should release them. I don't know why they're not, especially to take the focus back, because Donald Trump has overreached on Venezuela, overreached on the murder of Renee Good. I think they should release something this week. I think they should have done last week. And then you have the FBI agents who got access to all these documents and were all operating from the same open Excel sheet.
Yeah.
They probably copy pasted some stuff. Then you have Ghislaine Maxwell. She's got some stuff. And then you have the survivors. So I feel like it's like drip, 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 drip. I think they realize the flood's about to come, Ellie.
Well, and now they're subpoenaing the people who own the estate. So that's going to, I hope that's going to change a few things in how fast we get this information. Because this week they announced they're subpoenaing Darren Indyke, Richard Kahn, the two men who run the Epstein estate, but also Leslie Wexner, who is like the major player in the middle of all of this. He's the man who, quote unquote, sold Epstein all of his homes for $1. He's the guy who, you know, his estate is where Maria Farmer was assaulted in the very beginning in the 90s. He is the person who is the only on record client for Epstein, who used to be like, oh, file my taxes. Thank you. Here's $157 million. You know, he's somebody who knows everything. And this week I was looking through these files, and they're subpoenaing like Interlochen. If you know what Interlochen is, it's like a music camp for kids. They're subpoenaing Interlochen, but they have yet to subpoena Leslie Wexner, who knows everything. And so, and now, you know, it's been 30 years. It's been 20 years since they started the investigation. Like, is he even capable of speaking? How cognitively aware is he? He's like 88 years old. They have had the opportunity to do this for decades, and they haven't done it. And now we're finally going to see something, I hope.
Yeah, you. That was my next question, which is great. You went right there. Tying it to Leslie Wexner.
Yeah.
What we've also learned from what was released, and so much has not been released, is that in 2019, when Jeffrey Epstein was arrested, the FBI was also looking at 10 potential co-conspirators. 3 of those co-conspirators were named. One of them is Ghislaine Maxwell. The other is that French businessman who was found dead via allegedly Jean-Luc Bonneau via suicide in his prison cell. And the third one was Leslie Wexner. Now, interestingly enough, we don't know the other 7. I really want to know the other 7.
Yeah.
But speaking about Leslie Wexner, like why this is a big news. Democrats should jump on Wexner, who's still alive, and they should also jump on Leon Black, another huge billionaire who, for some strange reason, gave millions of dollars, and last time I checked, isn't as old as Wexner. Your take on Wexner and Black and their roles?
I know more about Wexner than I know about Black, but I also know he has a circle of billionaire buddies at the top, and they're all connected to like JP Morgan and all the, you know, wacky wild stuff that went on there with Jez Staley and Jamie Dimon and all the paperwork that we have now gone through and seen that was very obvious that he was making bank accounts that was, you know, funneling money out of the country. Leslie Wexner, we don't really know where they first met, but it was very, very, very early. Leslie Wexner he is connected with Israel. He is a billionaire. He owned L Brands. L Brands is like the umbrella over things like Abercrombie and Fitch and Bed Bath and Beyond, or not Bed Bath and Beyond, Bath and Body Works, Victoria's Secret. So he owned all these major companies, you know, obviously associated with modeling. He owned all these properties. So I've heard that he owned the Palm Beach property. I know he owned the apartment building as well as the mansion in New York. He owned a lot of the airplanes before Epstein got the airplanes. And there really is no record of any bill of sales. There's only record that the only thing that Epstein really paid for transferring the titles of these places is he paid for like the title transfer fees, which may have been like $150. And so now his brother owns the apartments. He owned all the buildings. And the idea was that Wexner was just like, I just don't like it here. I just want to move back to Ohio. Well, it's like, that's a weird way to do that. Like sell your house and move back to Ohio. But he moved back to the compound. The compound is really weird and set up to look like a Capitol building. When Maria Farmer was there, she said that there were guards with like sniper rifles and attack dogs, and it was to keep people from leaving, not to prevent people from coming in. And when you have all these buildings, the thing that Wexner was known for was being very paranoid, and that may have like gone back to that idea of intelligence and things like that. But like he is the guy who put all the pinhole cameras in all the properties that Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell swore up and down did not exist. And Virginia Giuffre said did exist. She said there was a surveillance room, and now we have pictures of the surveillance room, so we know she was telling the truth. But he had cameras, and there are still cameras everywhere in those apartment buildings that have people staying in them right now in New York City. There are pinhole cameras that they have not searched. They haven't searched those buildings. They have not searched Zorro. They have not searched Palm Beach on that level. And so he is somebody who knew all of Epstein's finances, likely had some sort of, I don't want to say romantic connection with Epstein, because Epstein, from all accounts, from what I have heard, was not attracted to men, but men were possibly attracted to him, and he may have played into that. But there was something between the two, similar to what we see in a lot of these relationships with like the professors from Harvard, where he was just really, really enamored with Epstein and gave him whatever he wanted. And that was billions, probably close to $1 billion and all the properties.
Yeah, but you know what? You can be enamored with someone. I remember when I was courting my wife and a single man, you take him out, you buy him nice things, but $1 billion and gifting a $70 million townhouse in New York, which was considered the crown jewel of real estate. I don't know, Ellie. Maybe it's something more than being enamored.
Yes, I think there was something there, but I think we have yet to figure out what it is. But the clock has been really ticking. I mean, he's a very, very old man. It depends on how much his wife knows. His wife is much younger than he is, but he is the only person on record to have been a public client for Jeffrey Epstein, which means he was the guy paying Jeffrey Epstein millions and millions of dollars for like tax advice and like, titling a house or just things that shouldn't cost that much money. He was paying hundreds of millions of dollars into Epstein's pocket.
And also Leon Black, for some strange reason, giving millions of dollars to Jeffrey Epstein for his advice, as Jeffrey Epstein, according to the New York Times report that came out a couple of months ago, just completely humiliated him and badgered him and mocked his children. And Leon Black, a billionaire, is like, okay, I'll just sit there and take it.
And if you're innocent in a situation like that and an article comes up in the New York Times about that kind of thing, you speak up and you state your case. But all these people are completely silent. And why?
And folks, to infuriate you further, what we found out from the last month's release is that the Farmer sisters tipped off the FBI that Epstein was a potential pedophile in 1996.
Yes, they did.
And then, he was given a sweetheart deal by Alex Acosta in 2008, 2009. He was a convicted pedophile. People still partied with him. In 2019, even, the FBI had Wexner as one of the 10 co-conspirators. Why, oh, why, Ellie, let's just go back the last 7 years, 2019. How come no one's, I don't know, deposed, investigated, indicted Leslie Wexner?
They really, 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 really wanted this all to go away. And you can tell that by just the fact that this was something that Trump campaigned on. He never expected to have to follow through on that campaign promise. I don't know. I don't know why he hasn't been deposed. I wrote an article months ago saying that he needed to be deposed because he's the one person who knows everything. But here we are. I don't think they expected us to want this badly. I don't think they expected us to dig this hard. When you look at the Farmer sisters and you look at what they reported in 1996, the FBI told them the entire time that they never reported it, that the report didn't exist, and that they were either lying or they were misinformed, or maybe they didn't fill out the paperwork properly. And so they gaslit those two women for 30 years. And then here we go with the Epstein Files drop. And guess what? There's the report. And that was the most validating thing in that moment on that day that could have happened. I can't remember, I mentioned this before, but I was on a thread with Maria, and I was on a thread with Virginia's brother and his wife, and I think their lawyer. And I wasn't even saying anything. I was just like, watching them just celebrate this moment because they had receipts, because that's the only thing that they want is receipts to prove that they said what they said and what happened, that they weren't lying, and that these people need to have consequences. The FBI needs to have consequences. If somebody, we tell people to speak up, see something, say something, right? We say that in airports. Like, these women spoke up and said something, and they were told they were liars, they were ignored, and they were told to disappear, basically. And and even in this last file drop, you have all of Annie's journals from the 11th grade writing about this event happening at Epstein's house, going to the movies, and she's like, he's really nice, and he said he's going to pay for my college, and I think it's a really good move, but like, I really wish he hadn't touched my leg like that at the movie theater. That made it kind of weird. Like, they have all this stuff, and yet they said that they didn't exist and they'd never reported.
It infuriates you folks because if you do the math on the timeline, 1996, the FBI has known for 30 years. And then a couple of years later, according to Vicky Ward, her article, which had the Farmer Sisters account, was spiked by Vanity Fair after threats by Epstein. And then you look at the sweetheart deal that Alex Acosta, who later became Trump's labor secretary, gave Epstein, whereas Ellie said he was free to rape for like a year. He was essentially out of jail for like 6 of the 7 days raping. And then
he had an ankle monitor on. There were girls that reported that he was assaulting them with an ankle monitor on, but they didn't know what it meant because they were from another country, right? They weren't used to that system, but he was wearing his ankle monitor.
And after that, still, all these powerful people hung out with him. Woody Allen, Larry Summers, Noam Chomsky, Bill Gates, Elon Musk wanted to hang out with him, Peter Thiel. And furthermore, financial institutions like JP Morgan were still associated with them, right?
Till 2013. Yeah, they just kept going. And there, if you look through the best case, the one that I tell everybody to read, like, there's a lot of dry stuff in the files, but if you want one that's really kind of like dramatic and fun and they have nothing to lose, read the case. It's the U.S. Virgin Islands versus JP Morgan, because they just rail into them because they knew everything. You can look at all of his financial stuff, and he had 134 bank accounts that was in the name of multiple women. He wasn't paying the women through the bank accounts. He was using it to funnel money back to whatever country they came from. And then you would have you would just have these things where they were business accounts, and you would have them paying for lingerie from these like business accounts or philanthropic accounts or just all this other weird stuff. So it was like so obvious to me as an uneducated, inexperienced investigator. I can look at that and be like, well, that's not okay. Something's missing here. And they just let it go because they kept saying, yeah, but he's one of our top 3 clients.
And folks, I was supposed to bring on Lev at 3:00. However, he just jumped on, and my battery has 23% left. So I did an audible, and I know Ellie has to leave in 10 minutes. So we're going to combine all our superpowers together. And Ellie, if I may, real quick, I know you have 10 minutes left. Lev texted me about 30 minutes ago, and he said, "Man, I think the exact quote was, I've been hearing such crazy shit. We really need to go live." End quote. And Ellie right now has done a masterful job, folks. If you haven't subscribed to Ellie, please do this. Subscribe to the Panicked Writer. She's fantastic. One of the top rising Substacks. She's going through everything. Her former skills, actually current skills as a transcriber and a researcher, are coming to fantastic use because we can no longer depend on the Department of Justice, on the Health and Human Services Department. We can't depend on the government anymore, folks. So it's going to be the rest of us because they're going after everybody, even Jerome Powell. So let me bring Lev in, then I'll bring you back, El, to respond. Lev, the crazy shit.
Dude, I don't even know. First of all, Ellie, what's up? Love you. I can't even tell you. I mean, it's so disgusting. It's hard to even say, but I wrote about it literally as I put it out. I'll quote what I heard. This wasn't supposed to be a white American mom. I mean, basically, I know a lot of us are talking about it, but like, I heard it from, my sources are pretty good. And this is one thing that like, I'm going to tell you that like literally they're saying Stephen Smith and Stephen Miller. And, exactly. And Donald Trump literally, are talking about how they can't believe that this is a white woman, that this was not a black or brown or undocumented woman, that how the narrative is so much harder to spin. And it all started basically how the conversation started, because I called up one of my sources to find out what happened yesterday with Trump when he watched protest. Because the protest, which was incredible, I want to do a shout out to everybody that came out yesterday and protested. This is exactly what me, Waj, Ellie, Joy, everybody's been talking about. Stay vigilant, stay powerful, stay loud, don't give an opportunity. And that's one thing that pissed them off, because they were watching this unfold and they couldn't get their, as they said it again disgustingly, but they couldn't get their George Floyd moment. Basically, if you go back to the protests that were happening during the George Floyd tragedy, you had reports back then even that Donald Trump wanted to shoot at protesters. You had Stephen Miller talking about pushing it, and they were really set up for it. That's why you see the constant antagonizing. Also, they sent in yesterday a guy by the name of Nick Sorter. Nick Sorter is right-wing media. For those of you that don't know him, but they sent him into Portland, and that's in Portland, Oregon. He was the guy that got arrested. Went to the White House. They sent in more people to Portland because of that. He instigated it. Then now he's in Minnesota. He's actually in a car full of right-winger Trumpers driving around into these peaceful protest, riling them up and starting it up. So, it was, I don't want to go through the whole article. You guys should go read it.
But Lev, it's all, and someone was saying, they said they came off of a conversation with you and Dean where all this in furtherance of their agenda, but also to distract from the release of the Epstein Files or the lack of release.
Look, guys, I try to be as sensitive as I can to the moment, because it's a very sensitive moment where, with Renee Good, and we keep saying her name, Renee Nicole Good, with her passing away and being executed and now the way they're trying to shift the story. But at the end of the day, we say here on the Left Hook with Waj, Ellie talks about it all the time, our whole platform at Lev remembers, the number one tool we have, folks, this is a war. And our nuclear weapon that we have is the Epstein Files. And yes, we want to say Renee Good's name. We want to go out there and get justice for her. But unfortunately, the way this country is divided right now, unfortunately, because this is a partisan issue, like it or not, because this is, you see Trump and MAGA going out there raising hundreds of thousands of dollars on GoFundMe for this killer that's supposed to have immunity, and now he's getting a legal defense fund,
which is bullshit.
Absolute immunity, right? So I'm just saying to you, as you're watching all of this play out, you need to understand that the only way we could save our country, the only way we could get back our democracy, the only way is if we stop them, and the only way we could stop them is the Epstein Files, because that's the only thing that is bipartisan today. That's the only thing that we have, even mega cracking, getting ripped apart, that agree with us. That's the only thing that unites this whole country. And that's why, I'm going to Washington, D.C. That's part of my movement. We talk about it every day. Ellie's on it all day long. Waj, 24 hours a day. I don't know how he does it, but we try to keep the attention.
No wonder your phone's losing its battery.
Right. I know. Keep the attention on the Epstein Files, because just think about it, folks. Just 2 weeks ago, before New Year's Eve, the last thing that right before the holidays, we were talking, every congressman out there talking about that there were subpoenas being ready, that there's impeachments being drawn up. And now it is, what is it? January 12th, folks. We've been in session for a week. Congress has been back for a week. And yes, there are things happening behind the scenes. We've seen, but which is not being reported about the Les Wexner subpoena. I think they're...
we talk about it right now, 30 minutes.
Oh, you did great, guys. Great. Rokana and Massey are pushing for the judges, something to go in the courts. I know there are things happening, but the whole thing is not enough. It's not enough. Because right now we should take the bull by the horns. We should put the pedal to the metal, and we should take these Epstein Files and put it in his face and make that number one. I promise you, you will stop hearing about him invading Greenland. You will stop hearing him about taking out Cuba. You will stop seeing ICE agents, so you will get him on the defense where they won't know what to do. And when Trump gets nervous, he starts making tremendous mistakes. And this is the time. And you could see just by a little thing that happened November 5th of this year when we had those off-year elections, when the country came out and stood up and came out and we Democrats, it was a tsunami across the board. The mayoral race in Miami, when you see in Mississippi, when you saw the things happen in Georgia, when you put all of that together, you saw what was going on with Donald Trump. They were on the defense. And we were all sitting here and finally praising, saying, until, again, some of the Democrats caved, all of a sudden, they gave him back, the power and changed the news cycle. So, you know what it is like. And that's what it's, and that's why we keep talking about it. That's why Waj keeps mentioning it. The Epstein Files is his Achilles cankles. It's his kryptonite. It's what's going to get our power back. Now, once we get the power back, folks, then I agree. Then let loose, baby. Then we need accountability for everything that's going on. And but we have to get the power back.
Yeah, we have to get the power, and people have to run accountability. And Ellie, you have to. I promise you a heart out in 3 minutes. I'll continue with Lev right after we finish with you and promote you about Jerome Powell and what's really terrifying right now. And some breaking news right now that the federal just came on the New York Times. Robert K. McBride, who had been serving as top deputy to Lindsay Halligan, completely unqualified U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, is fired amid further turmoil in the Comey case. And the reason why he was fired was after a disagreement about whether he would take charge of the Trump administration's efforts to re-indict Comey, according to multiple people affair with the matter. And this is on the heels of the bombshell, Ellie, of Jerome Powell addressing the world in a 2-minute video, straight up telling the world that Donald Trump, it's Donald Trump, folks, the Justice Department is Donald Trump, has threatened a criminal indictment of Jerome Powell unless he reduces the interest of the country and plunges us into hyperinflation, which is what happened in Turkey. And that is a type of bravery I never expected from Jerome Powell. But it's overreach. The overreach is happening. And I want to ask you this. I still believe, to go back full circle, Democrats this week, while this is all happening, they have a tranche of the Epstein estate files. Your recommendation to Democrats, I say release something.
Release all of it. I don't know what we have to lose. Like if you're unbiased, if you're nonpartisan, dump the whole thing. The only thing you have to worry about is redacting survivors' names. That's it. That's the one thing. Dump it all.
And if they dumped it this week, it would put Donald Trump on the massive back foot, because over 80% of Americans, as Lev said, including Republicans, want the release of the Epstein files. So now he's overreached on the murder of Renee Good, a white woman, overreached on Venezuela, overreached now on trying to friggin' take over the Federal Reserve Board. Folks, people will not like that. We'll talk about with Lev in a second. And now Epstein is back. Epstein is back. Listen to Ellie. Don't listen to me. Ellie, before I let you leave, shamelessly promote yourself.
All right. My name is Ellie Leonard. I am the Panicked Writer. I have a sale right now. I have a 25% off sale. I'm calling it, sorry, Adam Kinzinger. I know Adam Kinzinger does not like naughty words, but I'm calling it My Landlord is a Big Old Butthole sale, because he's trying to kick us out of our house. And we need to find a better place to live. So I put everything on 25% off. So I think that's $3.75 for the month. That's $37.50 for the year. I know some people still can't afford that, and I get it. But if you can, we appreciate it. It all goes to a good cause. It feeds my kids. I also have 100 kids. So yeah, that's what it's for.
Do it. Subscribe now. She's doing fantastic work.
Absolutely.
And you can just copy my term, the terrible capitalist sale.
Really bad.
Because your terrible capitalist sale matches mine. Mine's $3.75 forever. So do it now, folks. Take advantage. I just put it in the chat. It's ellieleonard.substack.com. She has gone through every single Epstein email. She's doing the work of the New York Times and Washington Post without the staff and without the money. So please, 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 folks, subscribe to her. Become a paid subscriber. $3.75. It's nothing. And if it is a lot too much for you, at least become a free subscriber. It's free. Thank you, Ellie. I'll talk to you next week, hopefully. Take care.
Bye, Lev. Bye, guys.
Bye, Ellie.
Back you out by 3. Lev, this video by Jerome Powell, Folks who are joining us, 2,400 people, I'm going to put up this fantastic conversation I had with economics professor Justin Wolfers. If you really want a good, I strongly recommend, I'm not just saying it because it's on the left hook, but he really broke down for the average Jose and Jane why this is such a big deal, the repercussions to American economy, to American safety, to American credibility, to the rule of law. But I have never seen a Federal Reserve chair come out on a Sunday night, do a 2-minute video to the world, and literally admit the plot that this mother effer on the DL is trying to, and I'm using Lisa Murkowski's words because Lisa Murkowski now joined Tom Tillis. I think we need at least 10 Republican senators to coerce him to reduce the interest rates or else criminal indictment. Lev, what have you heard, if anything?
I'm actually, I'm hearing some things. I'm not ready to report on them, but we will be. Maybe we'll go live again later on tonight because things are breaking as we're going on. There's a lot of things happening in the White House. A lot of unhappy people, with the way that Trump is actually. I mean, the thing with Jerome Powell. I mean. He did this without certain people. Everybody was not in the loop of this. This is, like you said, this was Trump doing it, Pam Bondi, the DOJ pressuring him. He was actually, some of the things I'm hearing that some of people in his administration were trying to talk him out of it. Didn't work out, obviously, as you could see. But look, I mean, it shouldn't surprise anybody. This is Trump's way of getting either what he wants, or, either he bombs you, takes you out in the middle of the night, or opens up an investigation. He's a dictator. He's a bully. He's a criminal. He's actually convicted criminal, folks, 34 counts. And so this is his MO. I mean, this shouldn't surprise anybody about it. The fact that he's doing it to Jerome Powell, the fact that he's doing it to the Fed, and the fact that Jerome Powell, I'm happy, and I want to say is thank you, Jerome Powell, that you did.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to say that he didn't just sit back and he came out and said, no. You want to talk to me? I'll explain to them what you're doing in front, but this is what we're seeing.
And imagine Lev, if Colombia did this. Imagine, because basically what Jerome Powell said was, "F you. I know how important the independence of the federal board is. I'm going to go tell the world, especially rich people and foreign markets, that you're effing with the independence of the Federal Reserve, and you've threatened me, and I'm going to go ahead and bypass all the press, and on a Sunday night in a recorded 2-minute video, just essentially reveal the plot, number one, and in a very nice way, tell you to go F yourself." Could you imagine if Apple did this, if Facebook did this, if, I don't know, Republicans did this, if Columbia University did this, if CNN did this? So, look, Jerome Powell is no lefty. He's like this, Republican light type of guy. Most of them are establishment dude. But the fact that he did that video, I think, is huge. And that was a video for the world. And also and now you got 2 Republicans coming out, Tillis and Lisa Murkowski.
Yeah.
And then you got the 5 Republicans joining. I know, folks, it's very little, but I'm just trying to give you some mustard seeds of hope. I'm trying to make my case here why Trump has overreached. And just paralleling with what Lev has heard from inside. He's overreached on the murder of Renee Good. They killed a white woman. And as Lev is saying right now, they really, really, we said this on the left hook and with Danielle, they really wanted a black body. But instead of killing a black person, they got a white woman. Overreach. Then this dumbass came out and lied to the American public. That's pissed off people. Oh, she violently ran him over. Like, what the F are you talking about? Even some right-wingers are pissed off about that. He's overreached on the war in Venezuela. 5 Republicans joined Democrats last week on the War Powers Resolution. He's overreached on cruelty when it comes to eliminating the Obamacare subsidies. He doubled down on it yesterday. And then you got about 12 Republicans join Democrats in the House voting to extend it. Let's see what happens. Now he's overreached on Jerome Powell. And then we just got this breaking news as of 20 minutes ago. Senator Mark Kelly is suing Pete Hegseth, and this just happened, as a complaint for declaratory and injunctive relief. And I think Mark Kelly just did this big post on Twitter So he just sued him. That's good. Finally, just some cojones, just some guts, just some fighters. Lev, your response to all this?
I mean, thank you. I mean, finally, I agree with you. But I give you a little story time with Lev. When you were talking about this, it reminded me of an instance when I was sent to Ukraine by Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani. This was May 10, 2019. So Vladimir Zelensky is still the president-elect. He just got elected to be president literally within 4 or 5 days. They have the inauguration coming up on the 20th of May. I'm giving you the background story to it. And Trump told him that he's not going to come because Zelensky begged Trump to come to show Russia that America supports. He said, no, I'm going to send Pence. Pence is going to show it's a big how to do. And this was all done, like say, May 9th. Now, fast forwarded to May 10th, Rudy Giuliani comes out and says he's not going to Ukraine because he's surrounded by enemies of the president while I'm in Ukraine. I get the call and I'm told, you got to go meet with Zelensky's people and you got to tell him hardcore that if he doesn't announce an investigation by Sunday night, which was May 12th, by Sunday night, that Pence is not going to show up to the inauguration and we're going to stop all military aid to Ukraine. This was the first quid pro quo and I delivered it. But now now setting up. So now I'm meeting with Zelensky's chief of staff at the time, Sergei Schaefer, his first chief of staff. We're sitting in this little cafe in the middle of Ukraine, Kiev. It's all guarded off by all of these bodyguards from all sides. And I'm sitting there. I'll never forget. I'm laying into him like Giuliani told me to, telling him that, listen, if you guys don't announce this investigation, it's all over with blah, 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 saying to this guy sitting, chain smoking, looking at me. And then he stops. He goes, can I ask you one thing? He goes to me, and we were talking in Russian. He goes to me, here you are, the great Americans, and you're supposed to be so righteous. You're supposed to be so right. And here you are telling us how to be corrupt. You're forcing us to open an investigation into something that we don't have. And if we don't do it, you're going to hold back. I'll never forget that. Like, I'll never forget how he looked at me. And at that point, I had to wave it off and lay into him and say, stop your shit, announce the investigation. But I'll never forget how, he looked at me and how he says, like, here you are supposed to be in the world, the beacon of what democracy is supposed to look like. And here you are sitting here telling me that you're going to stop military aid and you're going to do all these things unless we do something crooked and underhanded by getting involved in your elections, by opening up an investigation into your counterpart. And I'll never forget that, and, watching now the things that are playing out in front of our eyes and the way they're playing out and the way they're being, pushed, and the way we're, we should be tired. And, we talk about it, but I mean, think about it. I mean, he made us not believe our ears by, with the transcripts, with the calls to Georgia. We sat and had the same conversations. The whole world was crazy. We all heard the 11,000 votes. We all heard that, give it to him. But, somehow he forced it on there, mega forced it on us. And now we're watching something even sicker. We're watching literally something play out that literally, if you take, and we were talking about on Dean's podcast, that's why, some of the people that were there, I say, if you take AI right now, because I know Project 2025, I don't want anybody going reading it all. There's a lot. It's just tedious. But if you take a look at the part of where they're trying to build a society where it's pure white Christianity, and this is what I want folks to understand, because some people,
Can I say, Lev, just to delineate, it's important. Yeah, it's not white Christians; it's white Christian nationalism. Just for all the white Christians who are watching, listen, I got you. I got your back. It's white Christian nationalism.
Thank you, Waj. Thank you so much. And this is important because, a lot of people, attack Waj or attack others saying, it's you're the one that's racist. Folks, this is not about black, brown, Palestine. This is about all of us. America, most of America we are immigrants. We do not fit into that category, like Waj said, white national Christian. But we do not fit. It's a very small percentage. So when they do these things, it's just a matter of time until you're next. That's why, you can't sit there and say, oh, well, it's happening to the black people, or it's happening to the brown, or it's happening to the immigrant. It's not. It's going to be you. It's going to be just not here. That's why it's so important. That's why what Waj says and what Joy and what others come out, and when we're ringing the alarms and saying it, and that's why I wrote the letter today, my Substack letter, and it was so hard to write, because it's not about just a color, or it's about all of us, folks. It's about, if you go back to 1933, if you go back to 1940, it's about they want to take a small percent of this country and make the majority of this country fall in line. And that is why we keep speaking. There's more of us. We're louder. We're stronger. It's time to take our country back. When are we going to say enough is enough? How many more people have to die? How many more Renee Nicole Browns or Trevor Martins, or, it doesn't matter if they're black, white, how many people have to suffer? How many more people have to be dragged off the street, like Malcolm Nance was literally crying? I had Malcolm Nance crying on my show, talking about how this 17-year-old child was pulled off the streets by ICE. He had a passport in his hand. He was an American citizen. They beat him up. They threw him out. 4 hours later, as he's walking, he turns around and somebody comes up to him. A black man comes up to him and says, "Are you okay?" He goes, "No." He's crying. He goes, "I'm not okay. I'm not okay. I just got beat up. He's an American citizen, 17-year-old child." This is what America's at. When are we going to say enough is enough? But we have to do it smart, folks. And that's why we can't go out there with guns blazing and bats. That's not
They're going
the
to
world
kill
we
us.
live in.
They're going to kill us.
Exactly. That's what they're hoping for. That's what they're hoping for. We
If
just
they
need to
could
go out.
kill,
Yeah, good.
I mean, you just have to look at Renee Nicole Good, unarmed, white mother, dropped off her kid in her, I think, station wagon or SUV. Someone please correct it. With stuffed animals in the back. Her final words were, "I'm not mad at you, dude." Waves off the people, gets conflicting messages. Go. Then another guy says, "Get out." I think her wife says, "Drive, baby." She backs up, turns the car away from the shooter. We've seen multiple videos. The car doesn't even touch him. He goes against ICE protocol by discharging a weapon against a fleeing car. You're not supposed to do that. Shoots her 3 times. Honda Pilot, thank you. Shoots her 3 times, calls her an effing B, walks over to her, then sees, oh, I killed her, calmly walks to his car, drives away. They have a GoFundMe for the killer. Before her body's even cold, Kristi Noem, who I want all these people investigated, man. I wanted them all to go to jail. Called her a domestic terrorist, says she was trained to behave like this. She weaponized her car, essentially declares war on the rest of us, because in September, I want to remind everyone, National Security Presidential Memo 7, it says this is the Trump administration's war against radical left-wing terrorism, right? And as such, now we're in a situation where there's war against all of us. There's 2,600 people watching. I only have 3% of phone left. So Lev, shamelessly promote yourself.
I just want to show you something before we go weaponize your car. This is Nick Sorter in Minnesota right now, folks. Yesterday, in his car, they're dressed in militia gear, driving into peaceful protest. Now, watch what he does with his car. They're driving into a peaceful protest, agitating Minnesota.
Yep.
Look at him. Look at him, how he's going to take his car and now ram into them.
Yeah, they're ramming into cars.
Watch this. Watch this. He's gonna literally drive or past them, and hits the guy in the. Oh, here it comes.
Oh, there's several videos of this.
Look at it. The guy's flying
ICE
on
is
his
now
hood.
ramming into cars. ICE doesn't care. They're openly threatening people.
Doesn't
Folks,
care. Yes. Anyway,
I got 3%
I know
left.
I know you gotta run. You gotta run. We will probably be going. Yeah.
I'm trying. I've been going nonstop for like 3 hours, so that's the problem. Usually there's a little bit of break, but hold on 1 second. I'll connect it. Give me a second to connect. So I don't have to rush you. But I think. Hold on. Did I get it in time?
Yeah.
Woo! All right, 2% left.
There you go.
Real quick,
Look at him go.
As you can see, my son. Well, that's my son right there.
I love it.
This is life, man. When you're at home and you have an 800
That's
kids.
it.
But my fear, Lev, is let me sit on his bed, and then you could see the little duck in the back. My fear. Oh,
we lost you, Waj. Well, while we're getting Waj back, I just want all of you to know that he is going, not just look at this guy nonstop, 24/7. Make sure that, we all need, the paid subscriptions, but I want to make sure all of you, for like Ellie, Waj, for those of you out there, 325, these are some real independent journalism. So I just want to just kick it off and say, you make sure, subscribe to them, make sure, give them a follow, because they're out there 24/7 getting you the information out there that they can. And folks, my plan. For those of you that have followed me, have been with me, or are new to the platform, we're here to speak truth to power. We don't care which side it is. We don't care. We don't look at color, race, or anything. We're here for the survivors. We're here for the people. We're here to get our democracy back, because as my shirt says, enough is enough. So folks, if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe, hit that button up there, become, the one more thing I will tell you is, paid subscribers, why we say paid subscribers are the backbone, are so important, is because paid subscribers allow news like the Left Hook and everything to be able for their news to be promoted, to go to the top. So that's why, if you can, become a paid subscriber. Otherwise, folks, subscriptions, all of our platforms, we don't have any paywalls, because the number one thing is about making sure that we give you the information. And once Wash gets his phone hooked up, we will probably go live later on again, because the news is just getting started. There's a lot of breaking news. So folks, subscribe, become paid subscriber to the Left Hook, to Ellie Leonard, and if you can, to myself. And stay tuned. We are going to take our democracy back. Have a great day.